There's fear out there that Vance and Trump are idiots, and that Trump is just going from barnstorm to barnstorm, boasting and bragging and talking about himself, and he's not taking Kamala seriously, that they're calling her names and this and that and the other. I watched two events this week. I watched Trump at the National Association of Black Journalists, and I watched the entirety of the event in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And for 50 some odd minutes, he went through Kamala Harris's record from district attorney of San Francisco all the way through vice president and candidate. I don't see that they're not taking her seriously. Do you?
I think they're taking her seriously. Here's the problem. Most people will not do what you did, which is watch those events, go through all of that. What is happening is that on the social media level, the Trump campaign is not getting these criticisms out. They're getting the criticisms about her race and the fact that she seems to suddenly be a black person, even though she was Indian her whole life, and campaigned on being Indian in 2020. They're not getting that out. All they're doing is talking about sort of the lighting fire issues. And young conservatives are really concerned because it seems like directly after the convention for the Republicans, all of the momentum Trump had disappeared, and it became a Kamala Harris media firewall. And just for reference, in my work for the Crusade Channel, when I go to look for news stories, when I come through what's happening in the breaking news, it used to be that if you go and you search for each candidate, stories about each candidate will come up. But now, if you go and look for stories about Donald Trump, all you're getting is Kamala Harris.
Yep.
There is sort of a media wall that has been created to protect Kamala Harris, and it is startling.
No, this is true. I think you had the graphic that I sent you the other day, Maggie. I searched for, after the Elon tweeted this out or X'd it out, whatever the hell you call it now. The other day, I went, well, let me try it. So I tried President Donald Trump. I searched for that. And I got 6 stories about Kamala Harris. So now that was on Tuesday. Now, later on Tuesday, supposedly, Google was aware of the mistake that was being made, mistake my behind, and moved to correct it. And they said, well, now if you go search, now you'll get the proper results. That's not what I'm hearing. According to what you just said, if you search for Trump, you're still getting Harris.
You are, and what they've always done is they've changed it a little bit. So instead of it just being Harris, it's Harris majority articles with a little thing about Trump. So the justification they're giving now is that they're technically articles that involve Trump. They're just lead off with Harris. This kind of media wall that has erupted is insane. And it's not just news stories, it's the TikTok influencers that have all been brought together to advocate for Kamala Harris. We're looking at a huge operation on the social media level. And we've heard many reports in recent weeks that there are high-level Republican officials and associates leaking that they're very unhappy with J.D. Vance. They thought J.D. Vance would bring in a youth to the campaign that he has not, that he's been a very big disappointment. And I think in hindsight for Trump, picking J.D. Vance may have been a mistake because what he was supposed to do was energize the campaign with young people. And although young conservatives like Vance, the polling is showing he hasn't made a big difference.
So who would have made the big difference?
Well, a lot of people think that Youngkin was the better choice because looking at the Trump coalition, if you were a J.D. Vance voter, you were already voting for Trump in the presidential election.
All right.
If you were a Youngkin voter, you may not have been voting for Trump. You may have been voting for Republicans down ballot, but skipping Trump. There are a lot of young conservatives who are very concerned because they don't feel that Vance has added anything to the ticket. With Youngkin, Virginia was more in play. Trump didn't win Virginia in 2016 or 2020. He's never been able to do it. Youngkin has a great organizational mind, and I will tell you, the social media creation wall that's being put up by the DNC is terrifying to young conservatives, and it doesn't feel like the RNC is listening to anybody who's saying that.
So I don't listen to him, so I couldn't take it. I know he's not you and he are not BFFs, but he does seem to have his finger on his pulse. What is Charlie Kirk saying about all this? Do you know?
He's upset about. Yeah, okay. No, I watch the content, and I've spoken to many young conservatives within the group of people in the RNC and also in those organizations that work directly with the RNC, like Turning Point. And everybody is saying the same thing. The level of strategy that's being employed by the DNC when it comes to social media is like nothing anyone's ever seen before. And I went and I researched who's behind it. The director of RNC Digital Strategies is like 30 years old. She flies completely under the radar. She's got less than 1,000 Instagram followers, and she runs marathons. And she is single-handedly going to be the architect of the destruction of Western civilization because she's going to get that woman elected. And it's a very scary thing because when you go to look for her counterpart on the Republican side, there isn't really anyone. So it's not even that we have a bad person in charge of that. It's that the RNC doesn't have somebody doing just the digital strategy work.
Okay, so you're talking about Alicia V. Oken.
Yes.
Okay. Most people are going to go like, who? Milk a what? Literally, this is Lindsay Lohan. Alicia V. Oken on X. She's the Democrat social media director and the architect of all that is going on here, or all that is happening here. Maybe it was the case that the Trump campaigns thought that because they own their own social media, which is Truth, and that Elon is now friendly, which is X, that was a good thing. But, you know, Magdalene, I was cautioning the audience yesterday right here on the Mike Church Show on the Crusade Radio Network. I told you people, I said, you probably we watch it to get sound bites and just to get news updates because I have to have a source and I can't stand CNN. So I watch Fox News. But I told the audience, and I'm going to say this again, and I think this is really, really good advice. Fox News is an echo chamber. People whose votes you want to get that you don't have currently, if you're a Republican or you're a conservative, they're not watching Steve Ducey and Ainsley Earhart and Brian Kilmeade in the morning on Fox. They're just not. The people that are watching, well, look at the ads. All you got to do is look at the ads. Watch the ads. Fox News is for 55 to 100-year-old, either retired or soon-to-be retired conservatives. That's who it's for. That's their audience. If you think you're reading, yeah, but Tucker had 3 million. He had 3 million yes men. You got to get to Nora O'Donnell. You got to get Lester Holt. You have to get F. Chuck Todd and whoever it is that's on NBC. I forget who was the anchor desk at ABC on the nightly. I forget who it is. You're not cracking that. What you're getting out of those instruments? You're getting Kamala is our savior. Kamala will bring us all happiness and joy. Trump and Vance are evil and weird. This is what. So for those of you listening, going like, Magdalene doesn't know what she's talking about. Okay, you're a Fox News watcher.
Yeah. And it's very bad because the model that everyone is using to try to explain what Kamala Harris is sort of this outdated model of just attacking her for her origin stories. Yes. Is she a completely immoral person? Yes. Did she have terrible beginnings in her political career? Absolutely. But the American people are not going to not vote for her because of that. We tried this with Hunter Biden. We tried this till everyone was crazy over it. The American people didn't care about him. They cared about the fact that under Biden, gas prices have gone up. They care about all that. But when you attack somebody in American politics now over these sort of immoral issues, it just doesn't hit. And I think that in a large part, that's because Trump broke the norm of who could be the Republican nominee. He's a divorced man, children with multiple women. He's a New Yorker. Once that happened, attacking people over their political origins or their personal lives, it fell apart. And I will tell you that young conservatives believe very strongly that J.D. Vance now was the wrong choice. And I've even heard a lot of people say that when it came down to it, Don Jr. was sort of the architect of getting J.D. Vance in that position. And a lot of what we would consider strategists or consultants to Trump said this is a bad idea. Pick Tim Scott, he's a great campaigner, or pick Youngkin, he can deliver Virginia. And Trump really just liked J.D. Vance because he felt like he was another one of his sons. That's great, but that doesn't get you elected.
Okay, Magdalene Rose, our campaign affairs correspondent on the Dude Maker Hotline here with us. All right, so let's hop in the King Dude's Wayback Machine. Social media didn't exist, but this very scenario played out in 1988. Then Vice President George H.W. Bush was running against a very popular governor of Massachusetts, Michael Dukakis, and Bush then picked probably the worst choice in vice presidential history. He picked a young senator from Indiana named Dan Quayle. It was Bush Quayle, 88. And all the way through the conventions and on into September, and then even on into the early weeks of October, the Bush campaign was down, depending on whose polls you believe, in some polls down double digits, and it looked like the Democrats were going to slam dunk Dukakis, but then the real Dukakis showed up. And it was an absolute crap show. And of course, Bush went on to just destroy Dukakis. And even though the leftards, the libs then, even though they owned all the arms of broadcast, they owned ABC, CBS, NBC as they own it today. They own all the major newspapers, say for the Wall Street Journal editorial page, et cetera, et cetera. Ultimately, the candidate, enough was known about Michael Dukakis and what he'd actually done. I mean, the people say that the Willie Horton ads sank Dukakis. No, it was the knowledge that Dukakis was a East Coast Kennedy liberal. That's what sank Dukakis. Kamala Harris is far worse. She is the most to the left candidate in American history. I don't think even if you own all of social media that you can just bury that, because she does have a disastrous record, a horrible record. So that's what you have going for you right now, is that she is to the left of Barack Obama. That's hard to do.
It is hard to do. And I think that if that's how they were running, we would be in a better position if she was embracing that. But I'll give you an example. I was watching the women's gymnastics final on Peacock on my computer, and the ads that began running were very interesting. It was Kamala Harris positioned as the tough-on-crime candidate, and that she had locked up predators. And you know how we always hear Trump talk about how she's locked up more black men than anybody else? She's running on that. And that's what's so dangerous about this. She has decided that it's worth it to be the tough-on-crime candidate. And as a former prosecutor, she has all the language for it. So her campaign is smart enough to know that campaigning and running as the liberal that she is not necessary. She already has those liberal voters. Trump campaign desperately needs to do something that reminds people that she is completely incompetent. And if you look at the prisoner swap last night or the night before, they had Kamala there as a complete and utter prop. I mean, she was just a prop. But they're creating this illusion that she's the tough-on-crime, protect-your-children candidate, and the Trump campaign doesn't seem to know how to combat that.
Well, there has to be someone out there that's smart enough to tell them how to do this. Here, Maggie, play digital media file number 3. You can't hide this kind of stupidity forever. I'm sorry. I don't care who's running your campaign. There's an old saying in the racehorse business, a good horse is dangerous in any man's hand. It doesn't matter. Breeding will ultimately outdo bad training. So maybe breeding will outdo bad campaigning, because you can't hide this kind of stupidity forever.
This is just an extraordinary testament to the importance of having a president who understands the power of diplomacy and understands the strength that rests in understanding the significance of diplomacy and strengthening alliances. This is an incredible day.
What?
No, it doesn't mean anything.
Magdalene, you're young. Can you translate that for me? Run that through the international translator device.
All she means by that is it's nice to have a president who will never use force, and will only consult in terms of talking with people. This illusion that Donald Trump got hostage exchanges like because he was just like a tough guy is ridiculous. He negotiated, he made people feel good, he made people feel like they could do business with the United States. And the Harris campaign is doing this really nasty thing now, where they're creating somehow these articles where you have dictators and authoritarian leaders in this world reported to have said that they hope Trump gets elected again. That's not what's happening. Trump would go into situations with people like Kim Jong-un or Putin, and he made them feel like they could do business with the United States eventually.
That's
like
right.
Kim Jong-un could be the leader of a legitimate country. No one would be trying to overthrow him. So, of course, they want Trump back because they look at it and go, maybe we could do business. Maybe the United States doesn't have to be constantly judging the rest of the world, and we can just be autonomous in that. That's what happened. But Kamala Harris and her media operation keep twisting everything. I just don't understand what the Trump campaign is doing in terms of the narrative of everything. It doesn't seem like they're in control of it, and they're just sending Trump out, and they're not protecting him, and he keeps floundering and messing up like at this black journalist event. It just doesn't seem like he's being protected, and I don't understand why.
Well, at the Black Journalist event, I thought he actually answered Andrea Scott's question and got that he was the better man that day, especially when he pointed out, he goes, well, why is she black? She used to be Indian. She didn't have anything to do with you people. Now all of a sudden she's black. I don't know. Why don't you ask her? All right, we only have a minute left here. Let me. I will tell you in my research yesterday for my Substack that no one has read, but maybe we'll be blessed with readers this weekend. thekingdude.substack.com about this scenario here. I can tell you, I researched and I just said, let me see what happens if I type in Donald Trump, Bonwit Teller building. Now, why did I do that? It's one of the first chapters in his book, The Art of the Deal, and supposedly it didn't go so well, and the people in New York didn't like it, and this and that and the other. But Trump makes a whole chapter out of it because he was actually able to bail out, at least in the short term, Bonwit Teller. So I Googled it. You know what I got? I got a multitude of pieces that have been written or updated just in the last 2 weeks about the Bonwit Teller building and about how all of New York City and the Metropolitan Museum of Art and all of the architects across the planet were all still livid and upset because Trump destroyed the Bonwit Teller building and did not preserve and conserve the artwork as he has promised the Met. And I went and looked this up. The reason that they didn't take the frescoes, the engravings off the Bonwit Teller building is because they were 175 feet off the ground. And they weighed over 50 tons apiece. So to get them down, they would had to have built an entire scaffolding crane system to do it. In any event, even things that are his accomplishments, they are going back and rewriting the history. We only have 30 seconds.
Yes, they're doing that, and I don't understand why the Trump campaign isn't saying that. They're not holding a press conference about it. They're not using their media connections. The Democrats may have finally decided to just shut Trump out of the presidential election. But the fact that he's the candidate makes that even more dangerous because it shows that they will completely override any Democratic action in order to protect their person. They haven't had someone to protect since 2008 with Obama, and they have that now with Kamala Harris.
Well, there you go, Magdalene. Thank you very much. Great analysis. We'll talk to you next week.